Welcome back to the LCS Countdown, where we're gearing up for TSM versus Dignitas by looking at the Samsung SSD Fast 5. And specifically for playoffs, we're going to take a look at how these two teams match up. We're looking at 5 statistical categories. Now, these are the averages of each of the teams, not their fastest mark within the regular season. So you can see here, TSM eclipsing Dignitas in all categories except for that average first tower take. Mark, your initial impressions here?
I mean, the first one that I look at actually is the first Drake, because you can't see it on here, but that's actually TSM is first in first Drake time, whereas Dignitas is last. And with how important Drake is in these series that we've seen so far, and forcing soul point on people, which forces them to fight you, it is something that I want to track, because it also comes down to how the bot lane is playing, because TSM's bot lane in postseason was not doing that well. They lost Drake control.
Yeah.
Raleigh?
Honestly, I'm not too surprised that TSM's beating them in all the categories. You know, TSM finished in top 4 and Dignitas was bottom. They had 13 losses and 5 wins. So, of course, they can't have great stats and still lose. But the first tower, yeah, I got to say that has to be a Herald usage or their focus on bot lane. So that's kind of impressive that they're beating TSM. When we think of TSM, we think, you know, strong early game, messy mid game. But the fact that they're losing in first tower is pretty interesting for Dig.
I have a hard time putting too much value on these stats because of the difference in roster that Dignitas had before they actually switched things up and weren't on that second half of the split with a win streak, because they started 0-8, different roster, and it was just abysmal. And then even after they actually got some of those wins, their losses were so abysmal that this team's feast or famine style, I think, just translates brutally for statistics.
Yeah, one other wrench I want to throw in here, Mark. You cited those first Dragon stats, and while they are skewed heavily in favor of TSM when it comes to time, interestingly enough, TSM has only secured 6 total first Dragons in their games, whereas Dignitas has secured 8. So Dignitas ends up with first Dragon more often, however it comes later within the game itself. So again, so many sides to every story, and as you mentioned here, Crumbs, moving into the postseason, I'm curious to see what this new charged up Dignitas is going to do. Will they prioritize the likes of the Rift Herald and those turrets, or look to start stacking those drags as our other best of fives have seemed to rely on? Let's dive, though, deeper into today's matchup. There's a lot on the line for TSM today, coming off of a tough loss to Golden Guardians. So how do they bring home a win? Their postseason lives are on the line.
I mean, it was a super tough loss yesterday. And it's one of those ones where you need to start trying to, you know, triage the problems ASAP. And I think the first thing that people are going to look at is the bot lane. It was the biggest story by far coming away from that matchup. Not just in terms of, oh my God, FBI versus Doublelift, but also what are they doing about Ashe and Caitlyn, as well as the Morgana. They eventually had to ban the Morgana in Game 3, and I think people are going to be, hopefully in TSM, with their one day off, we're able to scrim some games, or at least play some matchups in the bot lane to find answers to that Morgana, because it was a close series, actually. If you remember back to Game 1 and Game 2, TSM had leads. You had this kind of backdoor. It was not as much of a stomp, even though it was a 3-0.
Yeah, and the fact that Golden Guardians had a strategy to kind of neutralize Bjergsen, the 3 bans at the start, the LeBlanc, the Zillion, and the Akali, I think, were the third ones.
Yeah.
The fact that that just makes Bjergsen into a farming lane, that's so powerful, because Bjergsen was such a game winner for them, and Damonte did such a good job holding him down. So I really like their strategy, really like their play, but TSM needs to figure out what else they can put Bjergsen on to have an influence. I
mean, Hanser even said it in the interview. They realized if Bjergsen is not carrying this team, TSM is not winning. That's why they threw all their bans that they could at Bjergsen.
So let's talk about then one of the lanes that we think maybe needs to step up. If everything is reliant on Bjergsen, I think a lot of people are going to turn a critical eye to the bot lane, because you have the winningest player of all time in the LCS, Doublelift, down there struggling.
Yeah, he's struggling, and he's going up against his longtime rival now in the bot lane, aphromoo. They had a couple great years together, getting their first titles in that historic MSG finals. But ever since then, it's actually been more time apart than together. As much as we look back at this as one of the founding bot lanes of North America, they've been fighting each other more often than they were together now. And this is just the latest chapter in the rivalry between these two players.
It's exciting, though, that for me, Afro has actually come back as a premier support. The fact that he was having such a low season last year and then shows up this one with Johnsun, an AD that not a lot of people knew anything about besides his solo queue games, and is actually now contesting the All-Pro, third All-Pro potentially. I mean, didn't make it, but still, I thought Afro has actually been really stepping up, whereas I feel like Doublelift right now, at least judging from the last performance against Golden Guardians, is on a downhill swing.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if aphromoo and Johnsun have what it takes to, to really bring it to the duo of Treatz and Doublelift within lane. I mean, we talk about aphromoo and the success that he's found so far this split, primarily coming on playmaking champions, right? You can see there, of course, a team that doesn't have a positive record isn't going to necessarily look great in any statistical category, but a much better performance out of aphromoo when he is on those quote-unquote playmakers.
Yeah, so the playmakers being your engaged champions and the non-playmakers being more of your enchanters. But because Dardoch and Viper and Fenix have found their stride with their champion pool, it actually allowed more flexibility for Aphro and Johnsun to pick more of the enchanters, which are more lane-focused. So I actually think that if Dignitas has used their preparation well and figured out, hey, we can just put Fenix on Sett, Dardoch can play some proper champions, maybe Lilia help out with some engage because he already showed that, and Viper can hold his own in the top lane. It frees up Aphro to play these champions like Soraka, like Deluxe, like Morgana, and really bring the hurt to the bottom lane of TSM, who struggled so much against those enchanters from Golden Guardians. So there is a world where Aphro just says, I'm going to just play for lane and win the same way that Golden Guardians did.
Yeah, I really do expect to see that kind of difference in bot lane where it's not going to be a playmaker, it's going to be these enchanters. Golden Guardians did kind of show a kind of a game plan of how to beat TSM, but more importantly, like Aphro, even on these non-playmakers like the Karma, we saw him flash onto a Caitlyn trap just to save his AD, even though in the end it didn't matter at all. It was still like, he's not on a playmaker, but he's still able to make plays. And I think that's a big distinction between that guy.
Yeah, he's back in that playmaking mindset, to say the least. I do want to refocus back towards the mid lane. We talked a lot about Bjergsen and how TSM's success seems to be reliant on him. But Mark, this is actually a matchup we've seen a number of times, Fenix and Bjergsen, that people might forget.
Yeah, Fenix came into the league in 2015, which means he and Bjergsen have been clashing for basically 5 years now, and Bjergsen almost always gets the upper hand.
That's 24 games against
24 times these guys have gone head-to-head. And as you can see, Bjergsen usually outperforms him, more wins, better stats, and all that. But I do think this is a time where Fenix can step up, and he doesn't actually need to outperform Bjergsen. Golden Guardians has given Dignitas a bit of a blueprint for beating them. You already heard Crumbs talking about the bot lane stuff in the mid lane. Demonte picked Ziggs. He did not dominate Bjergsen. He didn't crush him. He held him in lane when even, was able to contribute in team situations, and I think that's not really Fenix's playstyle, but if he can do something similar about just being able to stay even with Bjergsen and let the other parts of the map win, that could be a way in.
That's where I think the Sett comes in, because Bjergsen also tried to play that champion, and Fenix, known for being easy to pick on from the junglers, you put him on a champion like Sett, now you have playmaking from the mid lane, and you're going to have much more confidence in him to not be killed by these ganks, so you can actually hit a mid game with a very relevant mid lane champion that isn't easy to take down. So I do think that the pools are somewhat similar, since we saw so much Azir and Sett from Bjergsen, and we already know that this is what Fenix has been playing lately.
Dignitas' uptick this split came with their roster swaps, and for Dignitas, their superstar jungler enters the postseason on his 6th team. So for a quick reminder on his journey, here's Riv with another edition of Oversimplified.
Hey everyone, before he jumps into his first playoff match of the summer, I wanted to do a quick rundown on the history of Dignitas' current jungler in Dardoch, Oversimplified. He made his LCS debut in 2016 spring on Team Liquid, where he won Rookie of the Split but would move on to Immortals a year later, where he'd earn the most Player of the Games that split. Then he jumped to Counterlogic Gaming in summer 2017, where the team would ride at the top of the standings, before another benching. Then he'd have a run on Echo Fox with another series of dominant performances. For one reason or another, Orange wasn't cutting it, so he donned green as he split time on Optic. After a stint in Academy, he'd make his return to the LCS stage for TSM this spring, only to be sent back to Academy in summer for Dignitas. Now, after fighting tooth and nail to get back on a starting roster, he's got his first playoff match where he can knock out TSM. And that's truly all you need to know in Dardoch Oversimplified.
So, oh, how sweet it is to be in a best-of-5 opposite TSM with the opportunity to knock them out of the postseason. No world's hopes if they do it. It's set up, my friends. Mark, I believe you were the one who tweeted out earlier. Is anyone smelling the upsetty spaghetti?
if there's some upsetting spaghetti in the air, it's because Dardoch is the chef. I mean, he has been hulking out. He dragged Dardoch in a lot of ways into this postseason off the back of his play, and they have a lot of tools to play around him. They have a good bot lane. He's playing well. If your soul lanes can stay even and you can get some good drafts that are able to set him up, I think Dardoch has what it takes to actually get the best of TSM. This does feel a little bit closer, and he will be the primary carry, I think, for Dig if they pull it off.
Yeah, and they've already shown that they play Lilia, right? So he's much quicker at adopting new champions. He has a lot more freedom to do that, whereas TSM clearly does not. If you can unlock him and you just give him the opportunity to be a former TSM jungler, to take revenge on TSM, it is so delicious. I am just, it's so good.
It's how they
sketty.
It's how he left, too. It was seasoned with the, like, no one wants him, supposedly, thing. And now here he is on Dig with a chance to knock him out of Worlds. It'd be so sweet, I'm sure. The sweetest upsetty spaghetti.
It's going to be some of that al dente upsetty spaghetti.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, I don't know, man. But Dardoch's going to cook it just right as our chef. No, I mean, it's intriguing because he has bounced around so much, and I know that there's been controversy that has, kind of swirled around Dardoch's entire career. But it does finally feel like a moment for him to really shirk that older identity, take down his former team here, and propel a team that seemed doomed midway through the split into postseason hopes and maybe a run at Worlds, really aspirationally. What a turnaround it would be for somebody like him. But ahead of this game, Pastry Time also had the opportunity to chat with Dig's coach ThinkCart about Johnsun and this best-of-5 series versus TSM. So let's listen in.
Thank you, Dash. I'm here with ThinkCart, the head coach of Dignitas, ahead of their game against TSM. ThinkCart, thank you so much for joining me. And here, I honestly wanted to sit down with you and just talk a little bit about Johnsun. He has been a newer player to the LCS, but he has been doing really well alongside Aphro. So I guess the first things first is, he's been through some academy teams. He's pretty new to the LCS. How did you and the rest of Dignitas end up with Johnsun as your AD?
Well, we acquired him from C9 in the Vulcan trade, and basically, as the offseason went on, it became pretty obvious that he could be a franchise piece for our team. And then in the beginning of Spring Split, he just really hit the ground running. It's really rare for a rookie to have that type of confidence and to have that type of skill expression very early on in his career. So right off the bat, we knew that he could be something special.
Was there anything in particular, like trait-wise, that you looked at, you're like, this is a skill that you don't see often, we must start you in the LCS?
Well, he was always very logical when receiving criticism, and he was confident enough to tease Huni, which definitely showed that he had his own confidence and his own trust that he was very good at the game. So those two combinations kind of let me know that he was going to be good.
Right, and of course, he has been very good alongside Aphro, been kind of one of the centerpieces of the team, it's felt like, this whole split. What was it like pairing him with such a veteran support? Do you think that helped him at all as a rookie player to kind of move into the LCS, given that he does have such a storied support beside him?
Yeah, for sure. Aphro's been every single day from the beginning, been going over wave control, all the different matchups, making sure we're building his matchup knowledge, his wave knowledge, and Aphro's been a really integral part in Johnson's development throughout the entire year. So huge credit to aphromoo, and obviously huge credit to Johnsun.
And then, of course, you are up against TSM, who are playing Doublelift and Treatz. It's kind of a similar spot, right? A veteran player versus a newer player that's moved up recently from Academy. So what are your thoughts on that 2v2 matchup? Because it does feel like you certainly can get an edge there, given how well Johnsun and Aphro have been playing.
Yeah, I would expect Johnsun and Aphro to definitely be able to hold their own and probably come out ahead in a lot of the matchups. It just comes down to TSM's preparation, because it didn't seem like they were a little out prepped going into the season against GGS. So it just depends on where their heads are at when they go back into the series against us.
And of course, without revealing anything, I assume you're feeling very prepared for this matchup.
Yeah, we've had extra days of practice compared to TSM, and we've seen an entire series of their drafting. So we are feeling pretty confident in our prep. Like I said, it just comes down to what adjustments they make.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining me, and best of luck in your series. With that, we are going to throw things back to Dash.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastry Time. Citing preparation there at the very end of the interview. And we know in the postseason, particularly in these 4-day crunch periods, that preparation is going to be key. With that added knowledge of what TSM was willing to play in their 3-game loss, I think the question is, what is Dignitas' target? But also, what will TSM have done in their 2 days of prep leading up?
That's the big question. I would hope, with a day off to look at their game plan and see how they lost. There's a couple things that they can change, most notably figuring out a counter pick to Morgana, because I think that was the biggest issue that they ran into, was that they even with Caitlyn, they couldn't find winning lanes because of that counter pick.
I want to throw your predictions up on the screen just as we continue discussing any final elements here when it comes to this series as a whole. Crumbs, Crumbs with the Dignitas prediction.
Yeah, 3-1.
He's actually going for the
so
spaghetti.
This is not even a close series.
Yeah.
One order of spaghetti to the analyst desk, please. For
Yes, please.
Crumbs, why is it going to happen? 3-1
Okay,
Dignitas.
lots of reasons. We've already covered how Dardoch's revenge and all these sweet things, but the reality is TSM looked like complete booty against Golden Gardens. It was awful. The fact that you even thought about putting Bjergsen on Sett, your only carry, just is appalling. They trashed the bottom lane. It looked so bad. I do think that Dignitas is a solid matchup in the bottom lane. Their mid lane is going to be fine with their champion select, and then Dardoch can have a really good time picking a lot of new champions in the jungle as well. Beyond that, Dignitas has more preparation on a new patch than the TSM that already looked like their preparation against Golden Gardens was not good in the first place. So they have more data to work with, and they should just be able to execute on it because you have had more time to play and experiment.
What's your prep for emulating FBI? He's the best bot laner in the league.
Your fans, your champion.
It's not just the strategy. The way the
champions.
players on GGS
You
played was what made the strategy work.
He won both sides of a matchup. You can't just download that off a spreadsheet and we'll just win both sides off the matchup.
You also can't count on 1,300 gold not being spent as well, so there's some things that are unaccountable for.
It could happen again.
Just
Might take
hope
a
the
break.
ADC bases and forgets the BF sword. Okay, just quick hit, Prolly. Why do you think TSM's going to take it?
So I do think TSM got exposed. I think they can fix this Morgana problem because I don't think it's a real problem. Hopefully Doublelift gets a bit of a wake-up call, and Bjergsen goes, just like Crumb said, I'm not playing Sett. I'm going to play a carry. Let's play around Bjergsen again.
Boom, there it is. We have our thoughts from the analyst desk. It's time to kick things off for the lower bracket and hand it over to Captain Flowers and Azael for game one.
When playoffs start, every player that's there understands that everything is on the line. I've been through it before. I witnessed firsthand that anything is possible. So I'm going to step it up in all notch.
Yeah, I clearly can agree that the sheep in need of a leader. Made a number one was just a feature for re-up.
They'll underestimate us quite a bit, and we're going to come out swinging.
Are you kidding me?
This playoff is the most important playoff of my career so far. Our ceiling is just really high. Yeah, if that 100 views shows up, teams are definitely going to feel it.
I don't buy what you selling, I sell it too. Keep it 100, let's start it in every group. I'm very cool, I'm cool to very mood. Filling the sky, my type, Nella be cool.
But Power of Evil is still alive. Santorum with an absolutely massive ultimate.
Riding round in limos, my bad me and I'm a Britto. I'm a psycho and a sicko. I turn your wife to a widow. From time when I was little, remember my little riddle. Never used to have iPad, I had Brillo. Numero uno, I act, they don't have a clue though.
I was brought to Team Liquid in order for the team to continue the success, and now this is where it really counts.
God is a fortress, that's class enormous. I don't have to beg no father, but adore us. I spoke to God and it didn't eat for me. He spoke to Pusher, but finished it to a T.
Bjergsen with the snapshot. Look at that damage he was able to dish out.
Having Bjergsen on your team is just not fair. When me and Bjergsen are on the same team, everyone expects us to win.
Bjergsen looking aggressively here for Niski.
I've been pushing, yes, I've been cooking. Road trips, them risks they've been tooking.
Obviously, everyone wants to be one of the greats, right? These players like Doublelift, Bjergsen, I want to show that I'm the best jungler to ever play in NA. These are things that I'm not going to prove by talking. It's something I'm going to prove by winning.
Been ballin', they've been looking. I first class your flights, I've been booking.
I'm really good. I think my team's really fucking good.
The flash kick in the wall.
So I'm 100% confident we can win it again.
We let the guns blow. All you see is bright lights through the gun smoke.
Rockin' with them, rockin' with them, rockin' with them, mother with them, rockin' with them, rockin' with them, rockin' with them, mother with them, rockin' with them, rockin' with them, rockin' with them, mother with them, rockin' with them, rockin' with them, rockin' with them, mother with them.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the LCS and the first elimination match of the 2020 Summer Playoffs. My name is Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, and I am joined once again by not only a literal world champion, but a literal fake historian as of 20 minutes ago, Mr. Isaac Azael Cummings Bentley.
Yeah, I've been brushing up on my history. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. You know, very accurate, of course, is what that alternate timeline would be. But today we are here to watch TSM versus Dignitas. As you said, this is the first elimination series of playoffs. We're down in that lower bracket. You know, TSM worked and grinded to get all those wins, to get into the upper bracket, to have that second life. And then they fell in the first hole and lost it. And now they're here in the lower bracket. They have no advantage over Dignitas, the 8th seed, anymore as far as their playoff run. Both of these teams would need to win 3 consecutive best of 5s to even, you know, get to Worlds, let alone win the championship, which would require an even more difficult run than that. So both these guys would have a miracle run ahead of them if they're going to be able to do it.
As the ancient saying goes, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single best of 5 in the loser's bracket. So let's see which one of them can manage to pull out of the trench here and get that journey started. Kicking off the bans, we got LeBlanc, we got Akali, we got Ashe, and then Caitlyn, Graves, and Azir across the board, as Dignitas will lock in a very swift Renekton here at the outset of the draft.
The blind Renekton, and I do think that Broken Blade is someone who might be willing to play something a little bit more aggressive, something that could outscale or win in the side lane. We have seen him go to some of those split push style picks, and that would be interesting if they want to take that direction. Overall, it's fairly safe though. Viper, unlikely to ever really blind pick Riven, so blue side, you're not expecting them to go for something like that. I will say I am surprised that it's not, you know, a flex pick or something along those lines first pick though. The Shen coming out here for TSM. This is going to give, I think, quite a lot of flexibility. Shen Sett, I like this as the first rotation, almost guaranteed. I'm assuming this will go to Spica. There is obviously the possibility that it can go, you know, like Kalista Sett bot lane or even Sett mid lane that we did see Bjergsen play in game 3. But because there was so much reliance on Bjergsen to perform in their series against Golden Guardians, you know, in his 2 Azir games, he was really keeping them in it. I don't think we would see Bjergsen going back to the Sett for game 1, and I'm expecting this to mean Bjergsen on a carry, Doublelift on a carry, Shen can, you know, ult to support. You know, maybe you get Bjergsen on something that can side lane even a little bit, and then you have that Shen plus side laner combo. You can look for 1-3-1s, you can look for aggressive plays. That can be quite effective.
And on the opposite side, there it is, Olaf picked up for Dardoch. We look at Dardoch as being this kind of guy who's got to do a lot of heavy lifting for Dignitas. There's a champion you can do it on.
He's only gotten Olaf 1 time this split, but it was in a win. Aphelios actually going to be the pick here. So very interesting. Aphelios to answer the Senna, has received some nerfs, still obviously scales very well, can be that big threat. You know, a lot of it these days is just about the Infernum magic, right? You know, hoping you get that dream scenario where everyone is grouped up where you can AoE them. Aphelios does scale well, but, you know, does have a weaker landing phase than the Senna. I am going to be interested to see, you know, what the support picks are here, because I do think that TSM got torn apart in the draft as far as that bot lane 2v2 by Golden Guardians. Yes, Huhi and FBI outplayed their opponents, but they also outdrafted their opponents, and TSM didn't have answers for blind Morgana. When they banned out the Morgana and they went to the Thresh, it was an easy answer of Tahm Kench over for Dignitas. With the Tahm Kench ban, I'm almost wondering if they just want to go back to Thresh again, which would kind of mean you have to ban out Morgana here too. And I do think that's concerning for TSM if you're trying to force, you know, the Thresh or a pick like that so hard that you have got to spend multiple bans to get it. And we'll see if that is the direction that they are going to go.
Well, Dignitas are going to ban away the Nidalee here, so they seem to believe that there is a pretty solid chance that the Sett is going either mid or support. And it's not actually the pick there for Spica, so they don't want to enable him to play one of those powerful carry junglers himself. Zilean also banned out by Dig, pretty much a Bjergsen trademark here, one of the only players that we see put a decent amount of games on that champion, and Zoe will be our final ban.
I'm a little bit surprised by those 2 bans, to be honest with you, because I just think it's a pretty low chance that you're going to have a tank mid as well as, you know, a tank top and only like a 1 damage threat with the Aphelios. you know, that just seems a little bit strange with the Nidalee ban, but obviously they are very concerned about that Nidalee. And just the pick and ban trends and talking to some of the players, clearly Nidalee is having so much more success in scrims, and I think that is really having a big impact on how people are kind of rating this champion. Because from watching it played on stage, from watching it played in the actual LCS games, when someone locks in Nidalee, I'm like, oh, you lost. It just doesn't seem to work out very well.
The champion doesn't invoke the same fear to us as spectators of stage games that it does to the players who are watching and participating in all these scrims, apparently. So either way, that fear is there. The Nidalee's banned out, and that means that Bjergsen will be piloting his Syndra. I talk about Zilean being a Bjergsen champion. Well, put all of the bombs and time shenanigans away, because Bjergsen is an absolute master on Syndra. He has put so many games on this champion throughout his career. Having him on this for game number 1 is a recipe for success here for TSM. Dignitas respond by picking up Ori in the mid lane. I feel like Syndra versus Orianna is one of the most evergreen mid matchups you will ever see in League of Legends, and Braum will round out the Dignitas squad.
But you've got to take a big step back and realize that TSM just blind picked Bjergsen's mid laner to give Treatz the last pick here, right? That, I think, is pretty important to note after they did actually struggle so heavily in the 2v2s against Golden Guardians. They're giving priority to that bot lane. They are going with the Karma, and we'll see if he wants to go Comet and really kind of index towards the laning phase, or if it will be something a little bit more defensive. You know, we can see people even go Guardian or Airy, of course. So I'm going to be interested to see how they do perform. I do think that, you know, Karma is something that people were kind of asking for when the Morgana was being blinded. People were like, where's the Karma? Where's the Lux even? And for me, you know, thinking about even some of the more extreme counters, things like, you know, Zyra can be very effective down there. I don't think that, you know, Karma is like a hard counter to Braum, but you do have double range here. You have the Enchanter who can allow you to get the push. You can queue the backline, try to keep Senna and Braum locked under their turret, and try to, at the very least, have a pushing lane down there. Anytime you are pushing, your jungler then has to play around your lane somewhat, give you a vision, because you're exposing yourself to ganks. But because the meta is so much about going for Dragon Soul, if you do have a winning 2v2, if you do secure that push and have a decently strong jungler, you can then oftentimes just get the first couple dragons pretty comfortably. So I do think that's what I'm expecting to see here from TSM. You have Shen on the top side, who's going to be looking to survive against the Renekton, who's going to have that Stand United available to get down towards that bottom side. You have Syndra, who can have priority early on against this Ori, and, you know, power spikes pretty early on with that ultimate, and you also should have a pushing bottom 2v2. So TSM needs to stack those dragons and try to have some impressive laning phases.
And I like the fact that they're also putting Spica on a meatball. I don't want to see Spica on a Nidalee. I don't care how many scrims it's stomping or whatever. This is TSM's greenest player. He's not the person that they should be relying on to carry them in playoffs. I thought that the comp that they drafted in their third game against Golden Guardians was ridiculous because it implied that. And I really like seeing him in a more supportive role for this team with Bjergsen on the Syndra, with Doublelift on an Aphelios, with support priority as last pick on red side in the bottom lane. This is what you wanted to see out of the draft for TSM. But I don't just want this to be the TSM show here in the draft, because looking over at Dignitas, I like what they did putting Dardoch on this powerful jungler that can carry. I don't want to see Dardoch on a single Cinder Hulk jungler this entire series if Dignitas wants to win it. I don't think it works if they do. We need to see Dardoch on something that can chat up and carry. He's there right now. They put Viper on a champion that is meant to win lane to help facilitate Dardoch playing aggressive early. I like what I'm seeing from both teams.
Yep, I think it makes a lot of sense. You also have Fenix on the Orianna. Anytime you have a shielding, speeding champion, things like the Yuumi, the Orianna, the Karma paired alongside the Olaf, it can kind of extend the Olaf's life in the game, so to speak. You know, he's not just going to fall off a cliff after the mid game. Orianna can help to really add value going forward into the game. As you said, you have Renekton, so that should be an advantageous matchup against the Shen. You do have a really powerful early game jungler here with the Olaf, so they can look to get aggressive on the top side. They can look to try to trade potentially dragons on the bottom side, for Rift Heralds and gold on the top side, for counter jungling on the top side. So we'll be excited to see how Dardoch can perform. And I do think that, you know, Dignitas is always a team that you have to watch out for, because yes, they have some bad games, but when Fenix and Dardoch are on, these guys are some of the hottest players who can really just destroy a game. They can also cost you games, but you cannot underestimate a team like that, because if they get hot, if they catch fire, they can take over a series. aphromoo and Johnsun have been very consistent, I think, over in the bot lane for Dignitas. So if others are going to step up around them, they have a legitimate shot in this series, and I'm going to be excited to see how they perform here in game number 1.
All right, as we're waiting for everybody to wait for their minions to arrive and sort of get into the laning phase here, got a question for you, Isaac. So as I was preparing for this series, I was looking through some stats here for the two teams, trying to find out some winning avenues for Dignitas, because a lot of people will rightfully assume that the deck is stacked against them here in playoffs. They're coming in as the 8th place team. They've got an uphill battle ahead of them. And I was trying to find some stats of like, oh, they should play around that. And when I was looking through these stats, everything's red. Red is bad. And there's one exception, though. There's one exception to the stats for Dignitas coming up red, and it is first blood percentage. Dignitas does get first blood more often than they don't. They get it 53% of the time, so it's not a sweeping stat, but this is still an advantage for Dignitas. And that's one thing that I think really is shown by the fact that we're always wanting Dardoch to be the carry for this team. I want to see Dardoch get a first blood. I want to see Dardoch get messy around the Scuttle Crabs in the jungle, or make an early invade happen, or make one of these early ganks, especially with powerful early laners with CC to set them up. I think that Dignitas has to play early aggressive and try to keep those first bloods coming.
I agree, and I do think one caveat I'll give as far as some of the negative stats for Dignitas is that they had some really bad games that can kind of skew the stats pretty heavily. When you do look at how they perform in wins versus losses, it's a pretty stark difference, because they did have some losses where it was kind of the sit back, do nothing, and lose the game. But they have also had some incredibly dominant games, and when these players are on, when they get advantages, I do think Dardoch is an incredible jungler at playing from ahead. He really can snowball. He's always been one of those guys that I think really kind of is in the moment, and when he's feeling it, he's playing incredibly well. He can take over a game almost unlike anyone else.
Taking stock of everything here while we're still waiting for any sort of action to show up, junglers still clearing through their jungle right now. I do want to point out that there is a teleport advantage and a summoner spellbook advantage for the side of Dignitas. Doublelift has gone with a cleanse in the bottom lane along with his flash. Johnsun going with the TP. And then spellbooks are up on both Fenix and aphromoo. Now, Fenix has teleport, so that won't matter anyway. But aphromoo being a 4th possible teleport at some point in this game means if Dignitas has their senses about them and they're able to properly play this map in terms of a macro state, we might get to see some fancy stuff out of them here, because TSM will only have the solo laners who can port across the map to respond.
Yep, definitely possible. The cleanse is a little bit surprising, I would say, from Doublelift, but I do think it's because he's expecting to push nonstop, and he knows, one Senna route with an Olaf walking down the lane would mean you're dead if you don't play that cleanse. So because he's going to play aggressively, because he's also expecting to have the push, he feels okay not taking the teleport. If you can shove in the wave and reset when it's at their tower, you often don't really lose much on the recall. So that is kind of what they are dependent upon. But if you're going to play cleanse, if you're not going to play TP and you start losing the lane, if things start going bad, it can be pretty tragic. This is not a lane that I think they're expecting to absolutely destroy. He is starting Cull, but this is a lane that they can farm and push, and we do see that Dardoch is sneaking around behind here, and Broken Blade just taunted forward. Ooh.
Yeah, Broken Blade, obviously he comes out on top in the trade there, but now after the fact,
the axe, I think.
He'll need to be aware of what's going on here. Ward dropped down into the brush. Spica now joining in. Remember, Viper is at 200 HP here at the beginning, but we're seeing exactly what Olaf is made of here in the early part of this fight. Viper tries to go in to finish off Broken Blade, but instead he's going to just be smashed into the ground. Oh. And here comes TSM. See you later. It's a double kill for Broken Blade. They're trying to clean this one up at least. Fenix is going to grab 1 kill in retaliation there. Spica and Bjergsen working together to take him down. A little bit more damage will do it, but well played by Fenix to make sure he gets a double there as things end. Viper with the TP back into the lane won't quite be able to find the damage. Bjergsen walks away, no health, no mana. It is a bloodbath on the top side. Broken Blade runs back into the lane, says, bro, did you forget he's a ninja? The sword just runs right through him. Viper teleports back in the lane, and he's got to go home.
Get back to base.
Go home, man.
Oh my god, what a start to this game. This was looking really dicey here because Broken Blade taunted forward right as Dardoch was showing up. He's winning the 1v1, and because he got Viper so low, Viper had to back off. But then this is, honestly some pretty brave stuff here from Broken Blade because his abilities aren't cooldown. So he's actually, waiting for that Spirit's Refuge, waiting for the W to come back up. It does just as he's surviving. Then look at the flash. As he gets out right as Viper flashes in, and Viper essentially flashed straight in, and Spica grabs him, claps them together immediately for that stun, killing him off. I've got to give a lot of credit to Fenix here, though. Fenix was looking so doomed. I did not think he was going to be able to get an additional kill back, weaving in autos there, doing a good job with that. And then this, almost a trade kill because Bjergsen flashed as he got stunned. So that was a spell buffering there where, he's stunned on the other side of the flash, and that allowed Viper to close the gap and almost kill him off. Scatter the Weak, of course, saving Bjergsen. But in all of the craziness that does come out of that, still, it is TSM coming out on top. They got the additional kill. And the worst part is 2 kills to Broken Blade, not even an assist to Viper. So Viper got really screwed in that. He died, 2 kills went to his lane opponent, he TP'd back, and then immediately got put to base. So, he's going to be down in experience, he's going to be down on gold, and he's playing an early game champion that you want to be bullying lane. If you fall behind the Shen now, guess what? There's no point in the game where you become more useful.
You want some more red stats? Because I got some red stats for you. Viper's stats throughout Summer 2020, it has not been the most phenomenal split here for Viper. The number, Azale, I want you to guess the percentage of games that Viper is ahead in CS at 15 minutes.
Oh, God. 10%?
You highballed it a little. 8. He is ahead in 8% of games at 15. It's actually 7.7, but I'm rounding up. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here. So considering his laning phase struggles so often against all different opponents, this is over the course of the entirety of Summer Split, being down like this, having his opponent get those 2 kills means even more, because this is not a player who is even normally doing so hot playing from an even state. When he has to play from a down state like this, oh my goodness, this game could turn into a top diff real quick.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. Thankfully for him, it's not like he's against like a Jax or Camille who's just going to 1v9 the game. Shen being strong does matter. And I will say that Shen is one of the tanks that, because you can build somewhat aggressively, go for an early Titanic, you can get more, I think, out of your early gold lead than sometimes a champion like an Ornn will. So you can kind of push your advantage in that side lane a little bit more. Obviously, you want to play proactively, and that's what I think we're going to kind of try to track here. We saw with EG yesterday when they actually played their Shen LeBlanc game, albeit that's maybe a better delivery system than what TSM has. Every time Huni had the Stand United, he was going in. And that's the kind of thing you want to see. Because when you're playing Shen, your goal is actually to tax the global resources, essentially, of your opponent, right? You TP, they TP. Guess what? Next time you Stand United, TP is not up, and now you have a global advantage, right? And you're continually trying to push your opponent back, tax them of those resources, so you can set up opportunities where they have nothing to match, and they either get aggressive and die, or you get an objective for free, such as the Dragon.
This sounds like literal world champion knowledge to me, because I remember talking to you about World of Warcraft PvP back in the day, like 3 years ago when I first came out here. And you told me that it was all about just making sure that you make them use something more valuable than you used.
Yeah.
And eventually you get to the point where you hit them with something really valuable, and they're like, well, crap, I've got nothing left, and you win.
Exactly. I mean, and the same thing kind of applies here to League of Legends, honestly, right? If you can trade an Ignite for a Flash, guess what? You trade it up. But the other thing about that is that you have to then capitalize on those windows, right? If you gank and you force a Flash, great. If you never re-gank and nothing happens from the Flash, then what use was it? You pretty much didn't accomplish anything. So that is why I like seeing Shens be proactive and not just use the Stand United defensively, because if you're just using it defensively, you're allowing your opponents to dictate the pace of the game, and you're allowing them to decide when and where you fight.
TSM now responding to the river here, making sure Dignitas are not able to take this Rift Herald. It is crab control for Dig in this top side of the river. Dignitas actually up in gold 2 compared to TSM, despite that early kill advantage TSM got for themselves. TP's coming in now from Dignitas. Viper's gone into the ulti. Dominus is a rockin' and a rollin'. Aphromoo's over the wall. Doublelift in some trouble. He is exploded! Good lord, man, that damage coming through. The Rift Herald is taken by Dignitas. Doublelift is taken out of the picture, and that collapse was so well done.
Very well done. And now they're up 1,000 gold. They grab the Rift Herald here too, so have the ability to cash in for even more. Doublelift just got absolutely erased, and that's one of the things that is really nice about Senna, is being able to match those global plays. It was actually even Johnsun who got the killing blow from bot lane while farming down there. So it is pretty effective, and it does help to really swing things in your favor. If there are side lane plays that TSM is trying to look for, if they're trying to utilize that advantage that they have on Shen to go at the Renekton, you've always got to account for that extra damage that can come through from Senna, as well as the really big shield.
And it was aphromoo using a Summoner's Spellbook teleport to get in behind TSM in the pit, to teleport to the ward Dignitas had at the red. I'm so glad that I pointed out the spellbook thing. I feel like I do that every game, and half the time it doesn't even matter. But this game, Azale, this game, aphromoo makes such good use of that Summoner Spellbook into a teleport early on here, and it ends up getting Dignitas some big wins. And now aphromoo is up here in the top side. Johnsun has come up to join him. You can see he's got the Mana Moon already completed, working on that Black Cleaver as the next item in inventory. Doublelift lower just a little bit on CS there, so honestly bot lane going pretty even, but that kill doing a good job keeping Johnsun ahead here as they look for some more plate money. Still 2.5 minutes left before those plates fall.
Yep, and also the fact that Doublelift moved to topside and Johnsun did not meant that he was able to catch up in the farm, right? So, TSM, I think as far as the 2v2 went, things went pretty well. They did get that first dragon because they had pressure down there, because Dardoch went more towards the top side, which is somewhat expected when you are playing with that Renekton. And yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Spellbook is a really fun rune to actually watch because it's such high variance, right? It can be incredible or it can be worthless. And this is 2 level 10s versus a level 8 here. Was that just a point-blank taunt?
Looked like it.
It looked like it. I think Broken Blade just shortchanged his taunt there, unfortunately for him. And that would mean that the dive would get called off. Perhaps I misread that animation, but that did look like a taunt. And now it's Dignitas' turn, seeing that they were down on that bottom side, that Bjergsen is missing. They know there's multiple members down there. They're going to look actually 4v2 dive here. Bjergsen is basing.
Baby.
They do have double TP, but I don't know if you're going to be able to respond in time.
Shelly's ready to go to tank this turret. Dive coming through. TP is going to show up. Can Dignitas actually go for this? Dardoch is underneath the turret, but now he's going to be... Oh, no, Dignitas. Everything goes wrong, and I mean everything. TSM coming around now for an even greater counterattack. Chilling smite down onto the Croc. Flash away from Johnsun, but here comes Broken Blade trying to make sure he's got the backup for his ally. They're underneath the turret. They're cleaning everybody up. Johnsun staying alive. A little bit more damage coming out of Bjergsen. Wants to finish him off.
Are you kidding?
Johnsun is just sidestepping everything. He dies at the very end, but he avoids enough to take Bjerg with him.
Damn, that was clean from Johnsun, though. He does go down, but what was that, 3 straight Qs? He sidestepped from Bjergsen?
It was a lot.
That was nuts. Dignitas, though, hard committed to that dive, and TSM go for the double TP. The turret isn't so low that it's just going to straight up die from the Herald, and Doublelift had a very critical flash here. You have to flash a Shockwave. The Braum ultimate comes through. It was not perfectly layered with the Shockwave, so Doublelift flashes back, gets behind the turret, does end up surviving, and Dignitas was expending their resources on him, even sidestepping the ultimate there from Johnsun to be able to survive. And then Spica getting aggressive here. Watch the Stand United cooldown up now. As he is mid-air, it comes up. So that allows them to go in here. In pops that Shen. Johnsun here now with the fancy feet. Sidesteps 1, sidesteps 2, sidesteps 3.
That was a W. Yeah,
I think
the last one was a W.
Didn't hit either, and then gets killed by that Scatter of the Weak. So nicely played by Johnsun, showing why this guy's getting a lot of recognition. Some of these young marksman players in NA are being pretty hyped up, and rightfully so. Tactical, Johnsun, FBI, this new era of marksman players here trying to prove that they are better than Doublelift, that they have can beat Doublelift. FBI beat him up yesterday, and now it's Johnson's turn to see if he can take down the guy who has been the king of the marksman in North America for so many years.
It's fun to see, man. I love seeing new talent rise up and really earn their place here. But going back to that play, although Johnsun played it well, the rest of Dignitas, there's some head scratching to be going on there. At the very beginning of the dive, it was actually turret aggro on Fenix that made him have to step away and not be able to follow it up cleanly. Yep. The Shelly summoning was a little bit off. There was just quite a few things that weren't quite on the same page. I think they were all in the same chapter at least. They knew what the homework was. They just didn't do it.
To me, it felt like there was a little bit of panic when they started seeing the teleports coming in and realizing, oh god, we gotta go. and then maybe a little bit of miscommunication as far as who's going to start it off, when you're going for those tower dives. But Spica's here. This could be a 2v2.
Oh, baby, 2v2 breaking out. Here comes the cavalry with that big old laser across the map. And once again, it's Johnsun from all the way over there in somewhere Wisconsin, shooting a laser across the country, grabbing the kill. Dignitas does end up getting themselves a 1-for-1. It's top laner for top laner, but the money is on the Senna.
I feel like it's so rare that as the Senna you actually get killing blows with the ultimate. It's almost always you just get the assists for shielding your teammates. Doublelift has got to be like, come on, guys. Quit feeding
Stop feeding him.
Quit feeding my laner. He's farming down here in the bot lane. Doesn't go up for the Rift Herald, gets kill and blow. Farming down 2v2 in the bot lane, gets kill and blow.
He's got a whole BF sword worth of kill money already. Like, half of this Black Cleaver is going to be paid for by his kills, and half of those kills are cross-the-map snipes.
Look at his items. He is rich. He's got some current plates.
Man.
He's got, two and a bit with the Executioners on top of the Black Cleaver, so he's got the CDR. He has,
I love it.
Is stacking up that tier, and he's going to be looking pretty good. Doublelift has good farm, though, so he is going to be working towards his Hurricane, almost guaranteed. 3 melee members over on Dignitas, no reason you wouldn't go for it. Absolutely. And we'll see how they can do, because right now, a lot of the gold's in the pocket of Johnsun, but you also have to look over at Bjergsen and realize this man is 5-1-2. He is playing as Syndra, I think, historically his most feared champion really ever. This guy has been so good historically on Syndra. He has a 70% win rate on it, 70 games played as far as competitive goes. And that is the stuff of nightmares when he gets 5 early kills, because your Senna could get one shot if the Braum isn't there to protect him.
Yeah, when you think about win rates, remember that if you've got a 55% win rate on a champion in solo queue, keep playing that champion, because you're going to climb with it. You're going to gain elo. 70% in professional gameplay is nuts. Like, that's just absolutely incredible for the amount of games this guy has put on this champion. Spellbinder, now completed as well. So as he stacks up those stacks with the spammable spells in his kit, he'll be able to go for an even more powerful burst once the fight does break out. Rift Herald number 2 being picked up here by Dignitas. Looks like TSM isn't going to bother contesting this one. They're nowhere nearby, so Dig will pick that one up for free here. This game, Isaac, is still incredibly close, man. 500 gold. Separates the two squads just shy of 18 minutes here. We got the third Drake of the game coming up in about 75 seconds. And for Dignitas, this is starting to become an issue because this is Ocean Soul. That's going to be incredibly hard to deal with against a Shen and a Sett and a Aphelios, who we've already seen quite a few interesting interactions with how he can use the Scythe Pistol and face tank everything and kill you and live. So you got to stop the stack. Maybe they can let one more go. I don't know.
I think it's too risky. I feel like if you just give up 3 for free, you're betting on never getting picked, never having a dragon stolen for the rest of the game, because
you got to be clean.
Yeah, I mean it's just too unlikely. I feel like to really be able to count on that happening for the whole rest of the game. No mistakes essentially are allowed to be made. And Ocean Soul is so dangerous, especially with those frontliners. With Sett and Shen. When it's squishy champions, you can always be like, well, you can maybe burst them down before they get the healing. You're not going to one-shot a Shen. You're not going to one-shot a tank Sett, right? They're always going to get something out of that Ocean Soul, which is where it becomes incredibly difficult, where they can kind of bounce in and out of the fight and sometimes tank up a tremendous amount. But Dignitas is going to use this Rift Herald here to try to get themselves this dragon. They drop Rift, and then they use this to say, TSM, you must answer our Rift or you lose your tower. And while TSM are answering that, guess where Dignitas is? They are getting vision around the dragon. They now have positioning there. We'll see if they can get in, though. Spica is moving forward.
Here we go. Bjergsen gets rooted, but Dignitas still only has 4 players here. Viper has TP to join the fight, but things could be so explosive that TP is not fast enough.
Low.
Spica loses half HP. Haymaker shield also spent here. Dignitas will keep TSM away. Viper's hanging out on the periphery of the fight, ready to join if need be. Has flash to really try to close the gap onto the back line.
Yeah.
But doesn't look like
remember,
TSM's going to do this.
Johnsun also has so much healing, right? They're kind of trading poke back and forth, and Spica's getting lower and lower, and Johnson's just healing everyone through all the damage that TSM actually landed. So eventually TSM ends up at this point where Spica's sitting like 30-40% health, and that's pretty dangerous. Spica, if he gets spotted here, could actually just die. He's already 2 levels down, so he's going to have to Hex Flash out of there. But Dardoch is very far ahead of Spica, and things going a little bit rough for TSM there. They need to be able to find a pretty good hard engage. You know, these long extended trades back and forth are dangerous, but now they're TPing for a play on the top side.
Oh, they are going for this real bad now, as we're going to see the laser come in. Oh, but the damage!
Now you see him, now you don't, Flowers. You're a wizard, Bjergsen.
I blinked and his health bar was gone. That is Spellbinder Syndra. She pressed the big red button, and the lizard just became an endangered species.
Yeah, the lizard is not building health. That's a Bork rush right there for you. So Renekton goes pop. They get the tower as well. They do lose a tower for it on that bottom side, but Bjergsen getting even more fed. It's also worth noting that, you know, he's playing Phase Rush. He gets a flat movement speed on the Spellbinder, more movement speed when he actually pops the active as well, plus the Karma Shields for movement speed. So these are all things that are going to make Dardoch's job a lot more difficult, because if you proc that Phase Rush and you get Karma Shielded, there's a good chance that Bjergsen could just straight up, you know, run away from Dardoch. He can't stay on top of him. So they're going to need some sort of crowd control to really be able to send him in there, but Broken Blade may catch Fenix.
Oh, nicely done there. Fenix needed another half second on that back to actually go home.
He's got to run.
Viper's showing up, but Broken Blade's just going for the outplay. He's just trying to smack him around, forces the flash out of the enemy mid laner. Viper will try to finish this one off here, but is he even strong enough to do it? No, he's not. Viper is too far behind the curve of the game, too far behind the power level of Broken Blade. Mid lane turret taken out by TSM. Dignitas having to send both solo laners to deal with that situation that Broken Blade started. Because, I mean, Fenix was stuck in it. Viper tried to help, it just didn't work out. Honestly, Broken Blade is doing a lot of work this game, Isaac.
He is, and I've got to give him credit there for being able to outplay that. You know, he did trade summoners, and he gets out from that 1v2. Viper did not have his ultimate, but it also kind of looked to me like Viper was worried about where the rest of TSM was. I'm not sure if he realized that all four of them were mid lane, you know, that maybe thinking that Spica or someone is going to come in and actually back him up. But they may have caught aphromoo here. He is tanky.
Oh. He blocked the damage from the Scout of the Week, but the CC was still enough to put him in a bad spot. Stopwatch will keep him alive and allow him to disengage this Bjergsen with another Scout of the Week there. Dardoch pops the Ragnarok, but gets absolutely nothing for it. You can see he throws up the emote. He knows that that was not the best course of action there.
Yeah, it's playing for the intimidation factor. It's like, yeah, you better run. Get out,
I'm going to chase you.
Oh, you can run faster? All right, then.
Don't come back.
Go back to farm.
Don't come back.
All right, well, back to farming he goes. He has that 2-level advantage in the jungle still, but Broken Blade also has a 2-level advantage in the top lane, which is going to be pretty impactful. And it's also really hard for this Olaf to attack the Shen because he's actually built up a lot of armor. He doesn't really have any MR, so he is going to be more vulnerable to the Orianna. But, you know, with the Sunfire plus the Tabbies, he is very tanky against both the Renekton as well as this Olaf. You also have to remember that a lot of the heavy lifting for frontline killing is going to be on Fenix, not just because of the armor, but because it's Senna. Senna is more about the upfront burst. It is not about the continued damage. So it's important that Fenix continues to have a good game. And is able to really put out the high amounts of DPS that Orianna can later on to be able to deal with those tanks.
Triple black cleavers on the side of Dignitas means that at least when these meatballs go in,
very shredded.
They will be shredded. They will lose 30% of their armor
shredded
instantaneously. As soon as you go in, your armor is 70%. There's no way around that. But
I don't know about the triple, though. It's not really helping each other out that much.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That is indeed a very fair point here, as the next Drake will be spawning in under a minute. And TSM would like to put themselves at that soul point, make it so Dignitas has to answer every Drake thereafter. But right now it is Dignitas with control over the bottom side of the river. Viper goes in after Broken Blade. Dominus is used here. Dignitas are investing into this kill on the TSM top laner, and those investments pay dividends. Viper gets the kill, but TSM says, you want a Drake? Take it. We're going after the real prize here. It's a 4-man Baron attempt coming out from TSM. Ward over the wall from aphromoo, sees what's going on.
Finish.
Johnsun, Fenix, and aphromoo have to try to stop this one, but Baron is taken down by TSM. Very well done. They stay cool, they make the call, they get the objective.
Really well done here by TSM. Yeah, you lose Broken Blade, but I don't think Dignitas was expecting TSM to just be able to straight up rush it down at this point in the game, but Bjergsen super strong. You have the shielding from Treatz, and Doublelift was on the 2 items with the Chakram stacked up and just shredding through that Baron. They're also going to be able to grab this top lane tier 2. With that, Doublelift is going to have a huge injection of gold. I mean, he's even sitting on a bounty because of the amount of farm he has, which always feels pretty bad when you're 0-1 you have a bounty.
Yeah, like,
but still, he is going to be quickly approaching late game, and I'm excited to see, how much gold he has on this base, because generally speaking, when you hit IE plus the PD and the Hurricane, you are well and truly online. That DPS becomes very, very terrifying, and then you can no longer just worry about Bjergsen. You're going to have to show some respect to this Aphelios, so we'll see what Dignitas can get done, because Broken Blade is going to continue having pressure in these side lanes, and if Dignitas cannot compete with him in the side lane, then it's going to be tough, because anytime you try to engage on the 4-man squad, Stand United will be there.
Silver lining on the Dark Cloud, Broken Blade is the one player on TSM who did not get the Baron buff. So at least that split push pressure won't be what it otherwise could if he did get it. But TSM are pushing onto the tier 2 in bottom lane. Dig is not there to stop anything just yet. You can see everybody's hanging out, but they're pretty much just in the bleachers watching the enemy team just rush down the field. So I don't know what they're going to accomplish hanging out here. You know they're not going to engage on that. They don't have a ward in a good spot for Viper to try to TP and flank them.
Yeah, I think their hope was that TSM went past the tier 2 and tried to actually go over towards the inhibitor tower, and then maybe if they got that far, then Viper can come from base and you can wrap it around behind and try to find some sort of a good flank. So maybe that was what they were looking for. They're saying, okay, we can't actually defend the tier 2 anyway, so let's try to set up a play for if TSM were to overextend. You can see Doublelift did complete those 3 items. Johnsun's still very strong, though. He does have the rapid fire for the extra long range here, maybe trying to get some autos in on Bjergsen or Doublelift, as the rest of his team will be diving, and he wants to be able to follow up. But so much of what it's going to come down to, I feel, is can you land the Shockwave? Can Fenix get that ball onto Viper or Dardoch, have them lock down Bjergsen or Doublelift, and actually deliver that critical ultimate? Because if they can still delete one of those carries, and when you are playing these protect the carry style comps with only 2 threats, if one dies, that can mean the end of the fight. So TSM still have to play it very well, and we'll see if Dignitas can make it happen.
I mean, hey, at the beginning of the game, you said it, right? When Fenix and Dardoch are on, these guys are on. But they have to really do a lot of lifting right now to be able to win this game for their squad. You saw how much damage Bjergsen just did to Dardoch there in the bottom lane. Took him down to about 1/4 HP. Dardoch not using the ulti to get away from that one, recognizing no, he's not going to get 100-0 no matter how strong Bjergsen is. But Dignitas will continue trying to hold these lines. If they can manage to at least keep the base intact, not lose any tier 3 turrets, I think they'll be able to call that one a win. TSM completely disengaging for now. Baron is no longer available, and Dignitas survives the storm.
They do, but the gold lead has extended quite a bit for TSM. They knocked down a number of turrets. It's definitely going to be death cap for Bjergsen, 100%. We'll see what other items do start coming through for them, because they, I think, are really going to want to start fighting these next dragon fights here. It's been 2 oceans in a row for Dignitas. TSM did get those first 2 dragons, but hasn't been able to continue stacking towards that soul. Obviously, the last one was a Baron for a dragon trade, essentially, so that's more than worth it. But we'll see exactly how strong they are. Doublelift going towards what would be a death stance here with the Aegis. Can be very effective just picking up some of those flat resistances to deal with any sort of damage coming through. And you also have to remember that shielding becomes more effective the more resistance you have, because it is essentially just adding flat HP, and the higher your resistances are, the more each point of health is worth. So Karma becomes pretty valuable with that. Bjergsen did in fact finish the death cap, and likely working towards what would probably be a Void Staff next. And at that point, you really can threaten actually to 100-0 Dardoch probably, which is pretty frightening.
And when you look at the MR itemization on everybody on the side of Dignitas, it's really not much. Death's Dance on Olaf, Aegis on Renekton, Mercury Treads on Fenix, nothing on the AD carry, and now we got some trouble breaking out. Shockwave gonna force the flash away from Bjergsen, but the damage onto Dardoch. The headwear is in there, the hat makes the difference, and Dignitas, run for the hills, boys! This one is a frightening, as Viper grabs a kill onto Spica there on the back end of the fight. He manages to get himself away. That is a 1-for-1. It's jungler for jungler. but TSM is in much better shape. Dignitas has no health bars, and TSM is marching over to that Dragon Pit.
It could have been so much worse for them, though. A critical exhaust from aphromoo as Doublelift flashed in after the Infernum ulti. It looked like he was about to clean up everybody, but the instant exhaust from aphromoo defended him, and aphromoo actually just swapped over to Smite. So theoretically, if TSM, doesn't notice and aphromoo can get access, there is no jungler for their team. We'll see if they do want to wait for it, but they are starting this up. Remember, aphromoo has Smite, TSM does not because neither jungler is here, but he doesn't have Flash.
That's a normal Drake against Aphelios with 3.5 items. That thing's, it might as well be this cool paper mache lizard that you made in art class. It's just going to disintegrate as soon as he walks next to it. No way for Dig to get in there in time. TSM bring themselves to Soul Point, and Dig will have no choice but to contest 5 minutes from now. But, man, Dignitas realizing the damage that Bjergsen has. Hey, there you go. Isaac, the Void Staff is online. Any of the magic resistance they might have had, which,
the hills.
As I was saying, is very little. It's about plus 30 on everybody except Johnsun, except his is plus 0.
It's a scary world out here, man.
You're not
that's
gonna live.
a lot of AP. He has 3, heavy AP items here, plus this Spellbound on the boots and the Void Staff. He's going to be monstrously strong. Doublelift closing in on that 4th item. Dignitas is still strong, but again, it's hard for them to actually find these proper fights because you need to have a shockwave on the TSM backline. And the TSM frontline is strong enough that they are not, something to just be shrugged off. You're not just insta-killing Broken Blade and Spica. So they're having trouble actually getting the Orianna ball to the backline of Doublelift and Bjergsen. And that is really what they have to do. We saw them try to go for that dive onto Bjergsen. They got a good route from Johnsun over onto him. But he gets shielded up by Treatz. He had the flash, so he was able to survive that one. If they can catch him again, maybe you can kill him this time because he doesn't have the flash. But barring that, it's just like Johnsun can't do the same things to the TSM frontline that Doublelift and Bjergsen can do to Dignitas' frontliners.
That flash is down for another 2.5 minutes. That is 2.5 minutes that Dignitas has to try to punish.
This
Baron is up right now. Baron will go down super fast. You can see that health bar disappearing in front of your eyes right about now. TP coming in. Dignitas knows they got to go for this. Baron is already down to 4K. Viper may go in over the wall. The Baron will be slain. Spica responsible for that one. And Dignitas has to go for something. They cannot let TSM get it for free. They need to pursue something here. But TSM is getting away. And they make the call again. These Barons from TSM are winning this game for them.
Yeah, and you just can't chase into Syndra. I mean, if you funnel forward 3, 4, 5 members into a Scatter of the Week, your whole team will die off of that. They will turn and fight you. So TSM, make a good call, and they know their limits here pretty well as far as how quickly they can burn down the Baron. It looks like a risky call, but if Dignitas is mispositioned whatsoever because of the enormous amount of damage that TSM has, the Baron just evaporates, right? It's not even as though Dardoch has been able to get there in time in either situation to even have an attempt at that Smite steal.
And let's go back to what you were talking about with flash cooldowns and punishing Bjergsen. All of a sudden, TSM is superbly in control of the game once more. They've got another Baron buff. Nothing is happening on this map unless TSM says it's happening. This is a very difficult situation for Dignitas to be able to punish that window now. The Drake will not be up until Bjergsen's flash is already ready. Yeah. So unless TSM overextends, unless TSM says, no, we're fine with fighting without Bjergsen's flash, I don't see a world where Dignitas can punish that.
Yeah, it becomes very, very difficult unless you can find some sort of a flank, but they have no deep wards. There's no real options for TPs. So as long as TSM play it slow, play it smart, they should not be in much trouble. Bjergsen is coming over. Fenix and Johnsun have got to be careful here. In goes the Stand United.
Staying on the other side of the terrain, Bjergsen keeping himself safe. Taunt comes through, damage goes out, Fenix goes gold. The stasis will only keep him alive for a moment as Bjergsen is now on a killing spree, and with the Dignitas mid laner dead, TSM sees their opportunity to go in. Exactly. What is Johnsun going to do against a Baron up minion wave and a 5-man TSM push? Bottom lane inhibitor turret is gone, and TSM is on to the inhibitor itself. I fully expect this to be game. Dignitas will do everything they can to prevent that, but the redemption coming down to keep the health bars locked and loaded. Bjergsen just decided aphromoo doesn't get to play League of Legends anymore. He will press the delete key on him as well. Control and alt not even necessary. League of Legends is not being played by Dignitas anymore. TSM pushing for the win on the last Nexus turret. Broken Blade leading the charge. Bjergsen looking for some damage here. He's very low on mana, but it does not matter. The Nexus will drop, and it was a close game for a long time, but TSM will take game 1.
Good start here for TSM. A lot of credit deserved, I think, by the solo laners here from TSM. Broken Blade critical in some of those early skirmishes. Bjergsen being the recipient of a lot of kills and really made Dignitas pay for giving them over to him. You know, it was kind of, we talked earlier in the game, these two different members getting fed, Bjergsen and Johnsun. And Johnsun just wasn't in a position to really take over in that same way because Senna really does struggle to actually kill off frontline. And that is one of the reasons that people struggle sometimes to fit things like Senna and Jhin into a lot of team compositions, because they are not good at killing frontline. And TSM drafted heavily for that. You have two shielded up frontliners who are running at the Senna, really making Johnsun struggle, and TSM kind of had the pick of the litter. The frontliners from Dignitas were great targets, so they played it out well. They are able to take first game, but wasn't without some hiccups as Dignitas was making them work for it and did stay pretty close as far as the gold is concerned pretty much the whole way through.
And at the beginning of that game, after that first big brawl on the top side, I said this game could turn into a top diff pretty quickly. And because the story of TSM for a few weeks now has been Bjergsen just stepping up and doing all this carrying and everybody else struggling, I must put praise on Broken Blade's name, because this man did so much work for TSM in this game. Renekton was invisible. What did Viper accomplish that entire game? Not anything. Broken Blade was constantly drawing pressure from multiple players in all over the map wherever he was. He was always making sure he was getting taunts where they mattered. Stand Uniteds were on point. I loved how Broken Blade played this game. I want to see him continue to play like that for the rest of this series. I want to continue to see him play like that for the rest of the playoffs. And I want to see him play more Shen. I think that that was really, really good from Broken Blade. If they can keep that up, TSM will be looking good.
They will, but Dignitas, you know, they've got to turn the corner here. We have to see some better performances from them. I think Dardoch played well. You know, he got very far ahead, but it is time for us to step away. When we return, the State Farm Analyst Desk will break down that win.
Welcome to Assist of the Day, presented by State Farm. This is our very first double dose of assists in one play as Dignitas played a smashing game of stop the backs.
Luden's echoes for the stops again. You gotta be kidding me! But he's not anywhere near. He doesn't have minions just yet. He's still not yet going for the
Phoenix
end
is
game.
going.
Not just yet. Dardoch gets stunned up, but no one's recalling
Johnson's
yet.
TP. Johnson's TP.
Someone's gotta get back. They've got two. They brought in Johnsun. They're going for it now. Dignitas kept Viper in the lineup, and he won him the game. Dignitas are still in the
Welcome back to the LCS. TSM takes the first game of the series over Dignitas, but it was a hard-fought battle, especially through the early game out of both teams. But, gents, let's dive straight in. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to start in the draft because we had talked a whole bunch about how Golden Guardians laid out a plan. How do you feel Dignitas adhered to it? It's bad.
I mean, we talked about like Golden Guardians laid this blueprint, and then they started off with the blueprint with the LeBlanc Akali, and then I don't really mind the Ashe because I don't believe Bjergsen's picking that Zillion in the first 3 picks. But the first pick Renekton to put your draft around focusing top lane, that's not what Golden Guardians showed. And that's not the way to beat TSM. Yeah. Show your creative ideas, D&D. It's great.
Crumbs, what are your thoughts?
I actually think it would have worked if Viper just played a little bit better. If you had a Renekton that was a little bit better, those skirmishes would have gone the opposite way, and you wouldn't have given so many kills over to Bjergsen, who just got spoon-fed so many kills that he was unstoppable from almost having to do not a lot of work. So I really feel like the plan wasn't the greatest, yet if the execution would have only been a bit cleaner, they would have had a much closer game or maybe even a win.
So it appears nobody heard your joke, Mark.
Great Game of Thrones joke about the draft starting well, and then the writers thinking that they have a better
don't
idea.
try and tell it now, Mark.
I'm just saying I'm sad.
The moment's passed, my friend. I just wanted to let everyone know that they missed out on a joke. Well, that's unfortunate. Let's get into the game, shall we? Because there was a lot of action around the top lane early here. Extended skirmish by both teams.
This was the first fight of the game, really, where everybody's trying to get involved, and this is where the TPs come into play, and Broken Blade does a really good job just kiting out, and Viper's just waiting his cooldowns, getting some Fury up, and then, well, Spica has a fantastic E.
Oh, that's dirty.
Probably not intentional, but yeah, grabbing Viper back, and this was just not a super well-played skirmish on the side of Dignitas, and Fenix is able to kind of salvage the play. Gets the first kill, and then is kind of scaring Bjerg, but keeps his ball and damage for the most part actually on Spica the entire time. He gets one more cleanup kill, and then here, Viper probably has the chance to get the kill after the E follow with the Q, but actually goes for an auto attack, gets pushed back, but it was a super scrappy early game around the top side, and Dignitas was doing a good job fighting back.
Yeah, this is pretty much the time where we're like, all right, Dig actually has a chance in this game. You know, they do the Aphromoo as a flash ult. Braum wasn't on our list of playmakers, but he's still going to be able to make plays. And then the Senna ult coming in, and the good part about this was, yeah, Senna was getting all of these kills, so she was actually racking up a lot of gold in the early game. But this was kind of the weird Dignitas not being on the same page. They popped the Herald, but Viper's TPing late. So this dive starts off really weird with, no one really wanted to start it on Dignitas, so TSM had so much time to react, and they're able to pick up a couple kills on the back end.
Yeah, we were debating this back and forth, what was the right play. Either you can just posture and force TSM to react and then back off and bait a bunch of TPs, or you can go really hard and start TPing right away, 5-man the two people under the turret and just kill them instantly. Instead, they kind of go for the back, they're not reacting super quickly, and it allows TSM to turn. And once again, it's a sole man able to keep this play alive. It's Johnsun this time. Oh my Such good footwork.
That's one
dodge.
It's two?
That's
He's
two.
Dodge three. 3 skills in a row.
That's 3?
W.
Oh my
finally,
god.
And then he dodged the 4th Q, but got hit by the E.
It's the E.
Yeah, he got hit by the E, but then he gets the flash, gets the kill in return. But you know, when it's a battle of carries and it's a 5-kill Syndra on one side and a 4-kill Senna on the other, especially that early on into the game, typically things go the way of the Syndra. And with Bjergsen at the helm, I think it's no surprise that they were able to close it up.
Yeah, we talked about, Golden Guardians' really great strategy. They neutralized Bjergsen. He didn't get involved. This was a very involved Bjergsen, getting
Syndra's
5
like
kills at like
champ.
12 minutes. Yeah, Syndra's the best champ. I mean, they had a chance to ban more mid lane champions, but they banned the Nidalee instead in 4-5, so there's still more opportunity for them to pinch that mid lane pool and try to stop Bjergsen from having an infinite.
I have a hard time even feeling like TSM was involved because all of the plays that we saw were started by Dignitas. They just misplayed the execution every time. The first fight top, the Herald, like everything was started by Dig. They just were so bad executing on it that all the kills went over to TSM. It did not feel to me like TSM was very proactive in finding a way to win this game, which is why I still have faith in Dignitas moving forward, because they have been the aggressors this entire game despite losing.
I mean,
Brum's is still really. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, the only thing to that, Grumps, is I will agree Dig has a chance if they put their plays towards the bot lane. Do not go to the top around Broken Blade and Viper. Go to punish that Doublelift who's slumping right now, and Johnsun, who looks like a good star. Make your plays, but do them in the bot lane.
Yeah, let's talk about Johnsun as well, because, while Bjergsen was a top performer for TSM, even in the loss here, Johnsun put up some incredible numbers, and we saw the display of mechanics with the sidestep in just a moment ago.
Obviously, Senna's going to have an easier time getting involved in those plays in the top side with her ultimate, but Johnsun was super accurate and super on top of those and making sure to help his team in those situations, as well as when he was actually there, being able to sidestep abilities, get a lot of damage out. He had a great performance on the Senna, and I'd love to see a little bit more out of him.
Canada represent, man. Canada.
Yeah, there you go. No, he played phenomenally, but he was on that Senna. Of course, we saw the Ashe banned out by themselves and the Caitlyn response on the other side by TSM as we take a look at the final fight of the game. Fenix in a very dangerous spot. Baits out quite a bit, but unfortunately goes down in the end.
Yeah,
all for naught.
It was still Bjergsen basically the hard carry the entire time, and I think that this is like when you go back and watch this game again in the context with that draft points that we were talking about earlier, you can see why it ended up being such a poor draft in our minds. Not necessarily specific comp issues or anything, but just if Hanser told you the only person on TSM who's going to win them the game is Bjergsen, and then you leave up Syndra, one of his best champions. You're banning out things like
Braum explode
in the Ashe. Braum had a bad idea of thinking he could approach. You cannot approach Syndra.
And so brutal.
Doublelift had 3 assists. That was his total contribution in this game. He was 0, 1, and 3. Like, Bjergsen is the threat. Throw 5 bans at him. Listen to the team that just beat them. I don't know why Dig is changing their game plan up so much.
Preach it.
I mean, I will say, like, I want to hit back on what Crumb said, that Dig was kind of the aggressor, the ones making the play, and TSM was responding. The reason why TSM had Baron in that last play was because Dig 2-man bot to kill Broken Blade, and then TSM just took an uncontested Baron. So I do kind of agree Dig is the aggressor, but they can't be so wrong with their plays. They have to actually make sense.
I mean, if Bjergsen's not on a hard carry, though, at least like when you're doing those scrappy plays, you're not feeding over kills to someone who can just one-shot your support for looking at you funny.
Well, Dig's back on blue side in this one. We don't have any substitutions, but keeping the sides as they were in game 1 is all we're asking for. 5 targeted mid lane bans.
Yes.
No salty run back, please. If
salty run
blue,
back.
Don't salty run back this.
All right, follow the blueprint, Dignitas.
The Ashe, I'm fine.
It's been laid out for you. 1-0 stands the series score. TSM in the lead. We're stepping away. When we return, Dig has a chance to tie it up in game 2. Don't go anywhere.